Take a look at the woman sprinting across the road. Her name is Lena Moore, and she's 28 years old. She's fleeing a house barefoot. Her shirt is ripped, and there's blood on her arm. She dashes into the street and scrambles onto a neighbor's porch for cover. A red pickup truck slowly cruises through the area. The man behind the wheel is 35-year-old Ethan Rohr. He slows down near the house she just ran from, then continues his patrol down the street. It was later determined he was circling, hunting for her after she'd broken free. A resident spots the motion on his porch and makes a call for help. What unfolds next will reveal the sheer terror of the night she'd fought so hard to escape. This footage was captured on June 9, 2024, in Coldwater, Alabama. Deputies would later call the neighborhood a quiet one, a place where calls in the dead of night are almost unheard of. Lena Moore, 28, worked the morning shift at a diner in the small Alabama town. People knew her for working long hours, keeping conversations brief, and always trying to leave early to avoid trouble at home. She shared a home with her boyfriend, Ethan Rohr, a 35-year-old construction foreman. They had been together for 2 years. In the weeks before the attack, coworkers mentioned to police that Lena had come to work with noticeable bruises. Her excuse was always that she'd fallen down the steps. A close friend revealed that Lena had a plan to leave Ethan, but was terrified he'd come after her. Ethan had a record of past arrests for brawling in bars, including charges of assault and disorderly conduct. Both of those cases were eventually dismissed. He was the legal owner of 2 handguns and was known to keep one in his truck and the other underneath the bed. In the weeks just before this night, neighbors had reported hearing shouting late at night. One person even called a non-emergency line to report the sound of things being thrown against the walls. An officer was never dispatched that night. A formal report was never created. The confrontation that would tear their relationship apart ignited over a broken cell phone. By midnight, it had become violent. At 4:21 a.m., a man just 2 houses away dialed 911. He told the dispatcher a woman was hiding on his porch, that she was hurt and too scared to talk. When officers arrived on the scene, they found Lena crouched by the door, shaking. Her left shoulder was dislocated. Her sleeve and collarbone were soaked with blood. She managed to tell them she ran when Ethan left and warned them he was armed. She explained that he had been drinking since the night before and had started accusing her of cheating on him. For her own protection, deputies guided her into a patrol car while they waited for paramedics to arrive. She had only one thing to ask: please, don't let him find me. One officer stayed with her while his partner drove to inspect the house she had fled. The front door of the home was slightly ajar. A red pickup truck sat in the driveway, its engine silent but its headlights still piercing the darkness. Officers announced their presence and listened for any sounds from within. After getting no response, they moved into the front yard with their flashlights out. After a few tense minutes, a man stepped out into the doorway. They identified him as Ethan Rohr. He was shirtless and holding a cell phone. He told the officers he had just been woken up and was trying to find his girlfriend. He denied that any fight had occurred. He claimed that she'd been drinking and had just stormed out. The deputies took note of his limping right leg and the dried blood on his hand. When they questioned him about it, he claimed he'd injured himself while fixing a cabinet. The officers spotted a broken table leg just inside the doorway. He refused to let them search the house without a warrant. Supervisors were brought to the scene. Ethan was detained in the yard as deputies secured the home. A search warrant was fast-tracked and approved within the hour. Detectives showed up just before the sun came up. Their body cameras recorded everything they discovered inside. In the kitchen, a trail of splintered wood and drops of blood led them toward the hall. They recovered a phone with a cracked screen by the counter. On the hallway floor, the carpet showed clear drag marks pointing to the bedroom. Once inside the bedroom, investigators discovered a pillow and blankets saturated with blood. A dent in the drywall was at the exact height of Lena's head injury. On the floor next to the bed lay a small hatchet-like tool with a clear residue on the handle. Testing in the lab would later confirm that the blood was Lena's. In the attached bathroom, officers found a pistol magazine sitting on the counter with streaks of blood on the toilet and the wall. A towel had been shoved into the sink, which looked like part of an effort to clean up. Photographs captured partial handprints that were consistent with Ethan's right hand. Forensic teams took samples from every single surface that had visible staining. DNA analysis confirmed every trace belonged to the victim. Investigators also saw that several bloodstains had been wiped, suggesting someone tried to clean before they arrived. Later on that morning, detectives went to speak with Lena at Claiborne General Hospital. Her list of injuries included a fractured collarbone, extensive bruising, and a deep wound on her scalp that required staples. Her version of events was unwavering and perfectly matched the physical evidence recovered from the house. She explained the fight started around 8 p.m. when Ethan discovered some messages on her phone. After throwing her phone, he slammed her against a wall, striking her repeatedly. As she attempted to flee, he grabbed a nearby axe and hit her shoulder with the blunt end of it. He then dragged her to the bathroom, forced her face into the toilet, and told her he would make her listen. She later recounted that she faked passing out. When he went to find his keys to the truck, she bolted out the back, running through 2 yards before spotting a porch with the light still on. Her wounds were consistent with her account of the attack. She admitted to investigators that he had assaulted her previously, but she never filed a report out of fear he would find out. Ethan Rohr was brought to the sheriff's department at 9 o'clock in the morning. While being questioned, he conceded that they had argued, but denied ever striking Lena, claiming she becomes unstable when she drinks. He insisted the blood discovered in the bathroom was his own, from a gash he got on a piece of metal. Investigators then presented him with photographs of the scene. The axe, he said, was a tool for his job, and the indentation in the wall was from an accident while moving months before. Upon being informed that her wounds were consistent with being struck by that very tool, he asked for an attorney. The questioning ceased. He faced charges of aggravated assault, kidnapping resulting in bodily harm, battery, felony firearm possession, and child cruelty after officers discovered his 11-year-old son was sleeping in the adjacent room. Forensic lab work yielded conclusive results. Blood on both the axe and a pistol was a DNA match for Lena. The blood spatter patterns in the bathroom suggested an impact and dragging motion that matched her story. Ethan's fingerprints were lifted from a towel that had been used to wipe the area clean. No alcohol was found in Lena's system during her hospital evaluation. The case file ballooned to include more than 200 photographs, 14 recorded interviews, and over 40 minutes of body camera video. The gathered evidence led investigators to conclude that Ethan had attempted to clean up the crime scene before he went back out to look for Lena. Statements were taken from 3 neighbors. 2 of them recalled hearing shouting and a heavy impact between 10 o'clock p.m. and midnight. One neighbor noted hearing a truck start up and leave, only to return about 30 minutes later. Another neighbor's security camera recorded a truck matching Ethan's description, circling the block 3 times between 3:30 and 4 in the morning. The man who called 911, John Keller, stated that Lena was visibly injured and too scared to talk. His account lined up perfectly with the video evidence. He informed detectives, "She never said a thing. She just looked at me like she wasn't sure she was safe yet." The case progressed swiftly. The prosecution entered over 20 exhibits into evidence, which included photos, medical reports, and tapes of phone calls Ethan made while incarcerated. In one such call, he was recorded telling a friend, "They can't prove I did a thing. She just ran off drunk." In another, he remarked that if she had just stayed home, the whole situation would have been avoided. During the trial, Lena gave her testimony from behind a privacy partition. She was on the stand for 2 hours, describing the assault in a detached, emotionless voice. When the prosecutor asked why she had stayed with him, she replied, "I kept believing he would change." Ethan's defense team claimed her wounds were sustained in a fall and that she had invented elements of the narrative. These assertions were soundly refuted by forensic experts. The jury was shown crime scene photos of the bedroom and bathroom. The state rested its case after 4 days. Following 6 hours of deliberation, the jury convicted Ethan Rohr on every major charge except for 1 count of making terroristic threats. He received a sentence of life plus 20 years, without the possibility of parole. After the sentencing, Lena was relocated to another state through a victim assistance program. While she refused any further interviews, she did submit a written statement to the court that said, "I ran because I wanted to live. That is all I was trying to do." The sheriff's office would later authorize the release of certain footage from the case to be used for training purposes. The released video showed the initial 911 response, the discovery of Lena on the porch, and the subsequent collection of evidence. The red pickup truck was taken into custody and is still held in the police impound lot. The axe, handgun, and the blood-soaked towel were all cataloged as permanent evidence. Investigators characterized the case as one of the most unambiguous examples of domestic abuse escalating to the point of attempted murder. It started with threats, grew into control, and nearly ended in death. The security footage of Lena's escape runs for less than 2 minutes. In that tiny sliver of time, it recorded the exact moment she got away. Following months of brutality, the case exposed a familiar pattern that is seen time and again across the country. Warning signs were ignored until it was almost too late. Lena is alive because she fled and because a neighbor made the choice to open his door. Thanks for tuning in to Undocumented. Every story presented here is based on real-life incidents. Although the names, locations, and specific events have been modified or created for this presentation, the core message is authentic. Stay vigilant, take care of yourselves, subscribe, and hit the like button to see more undocumented crimes like this one.